In May 2024, I saw the TV glow in a packed theater showing Jane Schoenbrun's second feature film, I Saw the TV Glow. Since its release, the film has largely been praised by queer film fans, but especially by trans people or anyone who has experienced gender dysphoria. A film that rejects as many Hollywood norms as Jane Schoenbrun's films tend to do, I Saw the TV Glow is also a largely misunderstood film. Part of making an ambiguous piece of art is not having to answer every single question that your film poses, and especially in this film's case, I think it is incredibly impactful to let this film live inside your head before you start to dig deeper within the frame or within the filmmaker's own mind or intentions. So if you have not seen I Saw the TV Glow before, please go watch that movie before you watch this video because it is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I intend on giving this my proper deep dive treatment, which entails dissecting clues within the plot and analyzing all of its themes, and I've also cited several interviews with the filmmaker. That said, even if I do provide potential answers to unanswered questions or ambiguous things in the film, I'll only be offering up one or two possible interpretations of many, and I do believe that many things about this film are intended to be viewed from various angles, and they still can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, no matter what the artist's intention was. On the surface, I Saw the TV Glow is about two kids who begin to question their own dull reality while being captivated by a highly saturated Monster of the Week show. But its themes of gender dysphoria, queer escapism, and dysphoria in relation to time are incredibly apparent as the film progresses. So while I would normally tell you a bit about the film's production history and cast before I dive into the plot, for this one it's going to be pretty heavy on my plot analysis, so I'm going to jump right into the plot summary interspersed with my analysis, and afterwards I will provide what little tidbits we have about the production of I Saw the TV Glow before the video concludes. With that said, try not to smash your face into the screen, and let's begin. The film opens on an ice cream truck in the distance on a chalk-covered suburban street. We meet young Owen flipping through the channels on his TV before catching an ad for a show called The Pink Opaque, thus showing us the first clip from this entrancing teen Monster of the Week program. This week's monsters are the Drain Lords, some sort of creature with tentacles that come out of the toilets and sinks, but
they can't hurt you if you don't think about them. They can't hurt you if you don't think about them.
Later in gym class, Owen is consumed by a parachute of blues, pinks, and purples. Boom, title card. Then, flash forward, Owen is older, alone at a campfire, and he narrates how he's recently restarted The Pink Opaque, which he calls his favorite TV show. Title card, 1996. Young Owen, 7th grade, is at school after hours as it's being used as a polling location for the 1996 presidential election. Owen sees Maddie, 9th grade, reading an episode guide for The Pink Opaque, but his mother quickly pulls him away to go in with her to vote. In the voting booth, his mother says,
"It's time to vote for the sex of both."
Something Owen seems rather indifferent about. Other than setting the time period, this scene also establishes Owen's indecisiveness while also highlighting the way children can often be placed in positions of making decisions they do not have the means to make. For example, whether or not to blindly align with the political view of their parents, or perhaps the gender on their birth certificate. Then, after wandering the spooky liminal halls of a school after hours, Owen finds Maddie in the cafeteria, still reading. She explains she's here after hours because she uses the dark room to develop her pictures, but Owen's more interested in The Pink Opaque, which he says his dad doesn't let him stay up late enough to watch, unlike Maddie's mom, who
basically doesn't give a crap when I go to bed. Election night is cool, right? It's like Colonial Day, or when they bring the inflatable planetarium into the gymnasium. It's like the school gets transformed into something else, you know? It's special.
In the car ride home, Owen asks his mom if he can have a sleepover at quote-unquote Johnny Link's house, but he's really planning a secret sleepover at Maddie's so he can watch The Pink Opaque. Owen's mom says he must ask his dad.
Can you ask him for me?
At home, Owen's mom does so, and we get a glimpse of Owen's dad, who, although off-screen, is clearly being swallowed up by the glow of the TV. On Saturday, the night the Pink Opaque airs, Owen's mom drops him off at Johnny Link's house, and once she drives away, Owen begins a harrowing journey through the darkness and the rain to Maddie's house. Inside, Maddie's with a friend named Amanda, but chatter stops when the Pink Opaque starts. And we get some more context about what the show is actually about.
Tara is my imaginary best friend, and I'm hers. We met at sleepaway camp and discovered we had an ancient psychic connection. Now, even though we live on opposite sides of the county, we help each other fight the forces of evil. We are the Pink Opaque.
Not only does this sound like an awesome show, it also clearly harkens back to the Monster of the Week shows from the 90s and 2000s. Speaking on the significance of those shows to their own life and the film, Jane Schoenbrunn said the following.
You know, it's not an autobiographical film, but it's quite a personal film. And for myself, growing up in the suburbs, growing up as a trans and queer person who did not understand myself in that way, you know, in this sort of very monocultural space of like 1990s American suburbia, which is quite a conservative space. You know, you're not certainly not encouraged to express queerness, and there weren't really a lot of queer people around me. But I think that there is this process that a lot of other trans folks hopefully maybe can relate to of finding these sort of glimmers of yourself in the media you're consuming, you know, and for me that was television. So growing up in the 90s, I spent so much time watching TV, and TV was comforting to me in this very specific way where it felt more like a home than the home I was in, you know, or at the very least I was being sort of fed stories, entertainment that, you know, that I could build an identity around. For me, that was above all the TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which the TV show in my movie is sort of pretty overtly, like loosely inspired by. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you know, is a show for girls, as they would say in the 90s. And so
that's what they said.
That's what they said. And I carried around a lot of shame about how much I loved Buffy. You know, I wouldn't really talk about it to the people in my real life. And, you know, my dad would tease me, like, isn't that a show for girls? Like the father in the film says. And, but within that show, I found such a sense of, like a gaze on the world that felt like beautiful to me, and that, you know, in hindsight I can look back on and say like, oh, that was an outlet for my queer identity that didn't really have many other outlets at that time.
And when it comes to the name of the show within I Saw the TV Glow itself, The Pink Opaque, Schoenbrunn lifted it from a 1986 album by one of their favorite artists, the Cocteau Twins. In an interview, Schoenbrunn said, yeah, it's named after the Cocteau Twins album. If there's a band whose sound is closest to what the inside of my brain sounds like, it's them. The Pink Opaque episode begins with two kids eating popsicles, lamenting that it's too cold to eat ice cream in the wintertime, so one wishes that the ice cream man would never go away. The episode cuts to a young girl in her bedroom who is soon in the presence of a monstrous ice cream man. This monster is probably one of the most elaborate of the creatures shown on the Pink Opaque, and I absolutely love everything about it. And for any other ice cream man fans out there, here's a tiny bit of BTS footage from the effects studio, Spectral Motion, who helped bring him to life for the film. Owen, like Maddie, is completely locked into the episode, and as he stares at the TV, the movie fades to its emblematic shot of an ice cream shot with pink smoke billowing out. Afterwards, Maddie further explains the show to Owen and says Tara is her favorite character.
Tara's my favorite. She's super hot, and she doesn't take shit from anybody.
Tara and Isabel only met once at summer camp in the pilot episode, and for most of the series, they communicate with each other through the psychic plane.
So each episode, they help each other fight a new monster from across the county.
While the Ice Cream Man is just a monster of the week, the show's main antagonist is called Mr. Melancholy.
The man in the moon. He's always messing with time and reality. He wants to rule the world, to trap Isabel and Tara in the Midnight Realm. So each week he sends a new supernatural foe their way.
Because they're part of the Pink Opaque.
No, because they are the Pink Opaque.
I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
Later, Maddie tells Owen,
Sometimes the Pink Opaque feels more real than real life.
In the morning, Owen heads home. The film cuts back, or forward rather, once again to an older Owen sitting by a campfire, before cutting to Isabel from the Pink Opaque, wandering through the woods with a look of wonder and freedom. Title card, 2 years later. Teenaged Owen, 9th grade, walks around a fair with his mother nearby, and we soon learn that she's had some sort of health scare. In the car, Owen's mom makes it clear his bedtime is still intact 2 years down the line, and his father is completely silent until he is asked if Owen can stay up to watch the Pink Opaque.
Isn't that a show for girls?
To me, this line highlights how one's own queerness being channeled through media can be entwined with the shame they feel from being queer or different to begin with. Thus, in the same way queer people try to hide that they are queer people, they also tend to hide things that may make people perceive them as queer. Anyway, in that same article, Schoenbrunn says, quote, "The dissociation, the hiding in stories and hiding in fandom was a survival tool. You're protecting yourself from yourself to not have your entire conception of home destroyed." Owen, narrating directly to the camera, tells us that he's been too shy to talk to Maddie all that much in the past 2 years, but she still helps him watch the Pink Opaque by giving him her taped recordings. As Owen walks down his high school halls while Caroline Polachek's Starburned and Unkissed plays, we see some of Maddie's notes she left on the tapes to Owen, illustrated on the screen. Some notable ones include something about Isabel's magic dress, some repetition about those drain lords from earlier, remember, they don't attack you if you don't think about them, and we also get Mr. Melancholy's evil plan laid out for us: steal 100 hearts from 100 awkward kids to power eternal nighttime. Although later in the film, it seems his goal ballooned up to 1,000 hearts from 1,000 kids, but I digress. Owen ignores some ominous but accurate signs in these halls, as his mind is clearly on the Pink Opaque.
I watched these tapes over and over again, but they never got old.
We then see as Owen watches a rerun of the pilot episode, and we get a look at some new monsters and scenes from the show. Mr. Melancholy, the man on the moon, is shown, as well as his henchmen, Marco and Polo. On the dock, Tara comforts Isabel and explains to her that the two of them are special because they are the Pink Opaque, meaning they are psychically connected and have a destiny of defeating Mr. Melancholy, and Tara knew this from the moment she saw Isabel's tattoo on the back of her neck, which matches her own. When they place their heads together, their tattoos glow.
I don't even have my learner's permit yet.
How can I have a destiny?
Owen hears someone coming, and he stops the tape. At school, Owen approaches Maddie, who is eating alone on the bleachers. Maddie says she hasn't spoken to Amanda for a year since she spread a rumor that Maddie tried to touch her boobs. Owen asks if he could come over again to watch the Pink Opaque. This makes Maddie clarify her sexuality.
I like girls, you know that, right?
Before questioning Owens.
I think that I like TV shows. When I think about that stuff, it feels like someone took a shovel and dug out all of my insides, and I know there's nothing in there, but I'm still too nervous to open myself up and check. I know there's something wrong with me. My parents know it too, even if they don't say anything.
Maybe you're like Isabel. Afraid of what's inside you.
Owen and Maddie watch a new episode of The Pink Opaque featuring a new clown creature, and during the episode, Maddie starts to sob as Tara defeats the clown. That night, as Owen sleeps in Maddie's basement, we hear Maddie's stepfather yelling. Maddie then tells Owen that she plans on running away soon.
I'll die if I stay here. I don't know how exactly, but I know it's true.
Maddie draws the ghost tattoo from The Pink Opaque on Owen's neck, and as Maddie sleeps, Owen has static visions. The next morning, Owen struggles to wash the tattoo off his neck, and Maddie formally invites Owen to join her runaway plan, set to commence next Saturday. But on his way back home, he stops at Johnny Link's house and spills the beans to Mrs. Link, who is played by Amber Benson, who once played Tara in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Not only is Tara one of the names of the girls in The Pink Opaque, but also on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Benson's portrayal of the character Tara was notable for its positive exploration of the character's homosexuality. Owen tells Mrs. Link to call his dad since his mom's back in the hospital.
Okay, slow down, honey. What?
You can't let me go with her. I don't want to leave my home.
Owen narrates and tells us that his mother would pass away the next summer, the same summer that Maddie eventually did disappear.
All they found was her TV set burning in the backyard.
To make matters worse, that was also the same summer that The Pink Opaque was unexpectedly cancelled. We have now caught up to the scene we've flashed forward to a couple of times, and we get a closer look at Owen as he looks solemnly into the campfire. Title card, 8 years later. Owen now works at a movie theater. There, he catches his manager getting some action while on the clock. Owen apologizes to his manager, and he's later egged on by the same guy. On his way home, Owen comes across a peculiar obstacle. Some sort of electrical wire has gotten entangled in a tree that's fallen over and it's creating sparks, while the debris that surrounds it is made up entirely of pages from The Pink Opaque's episode guide. But not only that, the pages seem to be from episodes that never got made, since The Pink Opaque was cancelled after 5 seasons.
Season 6, Episode 1. Escape from the Midnight Realm.
If you pause the movie on this page, you can make out some of the episode's plot. Twitter user at neon_hammer put together a great Google Doc that saved me some time on this section. Obviously, you're not meant to read any of this the first time you watch the film, but it does give us some hints towards some in-universe context behind what Maddie will soon tell Owen when they reunite. So, from the pages shown, we learn Season 5 seems to have ended with Mr. Melancholy tricking Tara and Isabel into going back to the camp where they met, and he has now buried them there, stolen their hearts, and their souls are now trapped in a nightmarish hellscape they could have never imagined. Now, in Season 6, Mr. Melancholy seems to have achieved his goal of powering an eternal night with the souls of 1,000 weird kids, and within Isabel and Tara's county, things have never been worse. It says something about a senator mandating an endless math class, as well as a county-wide dress code for all of its citizens. The coolest club in town, called the Double Lunch, has now been transformed into Mr. Melancholy's lair. The synopsis circles back to the whereabouts of Tara and Isabel and says that they are, quote, in a town oddly reminiscent of the real world they need to return to, but different in so many subtle, insidious, horrible ways. But one thing is for sure, this town has been bled of magic and wonder. It's all conformity all the time. In this awful place, our two heroes no longer even remember that they are the Pink Opaque. Here, they don't even feel like heroes anymore. Here, every monster they both ever fought, every joke they ever shared, all of the heart-stopping moments of their lives detailed in the pages of this very episode guide weren't real. No. Instead, in this world, all of those were just the weekly transmissions of a dumb TV show. Absurd, right? Who would fall for such a thing? Isabel and Tara. At least at first. Can Isabel and Tara find each other again on the hazy waves of the psychic plane? The Luna juice and soil is caught in their throats, and they don't have much time. But then again, time might not work exactly like we think it does. After all, I'm writing this right now, aren't I? But you're also reading it right now. Strange. Tara is the first one to realize something is very wrong, that time and reality aren't as it seems. This home where she's been placed is little more than a mental prison deep inside the Midnight Realm. This revelation comes to her slowly, hazy, like the snow inside a snow globe. When Owen gets home late that night, his father looks at him blankly and eerily resembles Mr. Melancholy. At the theater, the movie playing behind Owen similarly talks about a villain causing an eternal night. After his shift, Owen stops at the store where he finds a transformed Maddie. She tells him she knows a place they can talk. At a local bar, Phoebe Bridgers and Sloppy Jane perform their track from the soundtrack, Claw Machine, while Maddie and Owen talk. Signs around the bar tell us its name is Double Lunch, which, if you recall in the episode guide for Season 6, Episode 1, was the quote-unquote coolest club in town that has now been transformed into Mr. Melancholy's lair. Maddie won't tell Owen anything until he answers a question.
When you think back on watching The Pink Opaque, how do you remember it? Do you remember it as just a TV show?
When Maddie asks this, we cut to a shot of Owen wearing a dress, seen slightly through the crack of an open door in Maddie's room.
Yeah, I remember it as a TV show.
Are you sure that's all it was?
Maddie tries to ease Owen into what she's trying to say, wanting him to question his memories of watching the show together. All the while, we see several shots of Maddie and Owen walking out to a football field, interspersed with shots of Isabel walking on that same field in the same dress. Isabel's magic dress, as Maddie's previous note called it.
Do you ever feel like you're narrating your own life, watching it play in front of you, like an episode of television? Or do you ever have a hard time distinguishing between what happened in the show and what happened in real life? Like somehow the memories got jumbled around.
Owen still cannot face what Maddie's trying to say, till Maddie says, plain and simple, that the place she disappeared to was inside the show.
I've been there. Inside the show.
Then, King Woman performs one of their two songs from the soundtrack, Psychic Wound. Outside the bar, Maddie tells Owen she's going back where she was. She tells him to remember the end of Season 5 and to not trust anybody in his life, as they are all working for Mr. Melancholy. She then tells Owen to meet her at the high school at midnight if he wants to go with. We then flash back to shortly after Maddie's initial disappearance, when she sent Owen one final tape for the Season 5 finale. In the episode, as the episode guide said, the girls are tricked by Mr. Melancholy into returning to their summer camp, where Isabel gets a psychic message from Tara, who is already buried underground.
Mr. Melancholy had got to her first.
Marco and Polo then capture Isabel, and she too ends up in the clutches of Melancholy.
Cut out her heart. They feed her the Luna juice. And then he makes his entrance.
Mr. Melancholy licks Isabel's face and sends her to the Midnight Realm using a snow globe depicting that very first scene we saw of young Owen.
So you won't remember anything. Your real name? Your superpowers? You won't even remember that you're dying.
Isabel is then buried alive alongside Tara, with their souls trapped in the Midnight Realm.
And then it just ended. Forever.
Trembling in fear and gasping for air, Owen's dad soon comes downstairs to find Owen desperately trying to escape into the TV.
This is my home! You're not my father!
Back in the present, Owen leaves his house to meet Maddie at the high school, but outside his house are two men who creepily stare at him. Aside from resembling Mr. Melancholy's henchmen in a similar way that Owen's father recently resembled Mr. Melancholy, these two are also nods to another Monster of the Week show, Nickelodeon's Adventures of Pete and Pete from the 90s. At the school, the planetarium is inflated in the gym, harkening back to their conversation in their first scene, and Maddie explains that even after running away to Phoenix and changing her name, something was still wrong.
Time wasn't right. It was moving too fast. And then I was 19, and then I was 20, and then I was 21. Like chapters skipped over on a DVD.
This is one of my favorite lines of the film, and I think it's relatable to a lot of people, but as Schönbrunn channeled a lot of their own experiences with gender dysphoria into this film, it particularly also resonates with trans people. On Time, Schönbrunn stated this: "Trans girls have a fucked relationship with time because A, all of the years we lost on one end we feel we need to make up for, and B, the mortality rate." I think what Schönbrunn is talking about is also very tied to the idea of heterotemporality, which I thank my brother for introducing me to in the context of this film, which basically means that the society you and I were brought up in has general guidelines or expectations of how we should all experience time that are particularly influenced by heterosexual and capitalist norms. These expectations would be birth, education, career, marriage, and then having a family of your own. That is my very simple understanding of it, but of course many of these things are inherently difficult and sometimes impossible for queer people to achieve, and I think the discomfort of existing in a world where it often seems like the only choice is to suppress your true self is a central element of this film. Maddie then says on her 22nd birthday she buried herself alive, with some assistance of course.
I said to myself, this is crazy. What you're doing is crazy. But another part of me knew that it wasn't. That it was survival, and that I didn't have much time. That what felt like years in this world was actually just seconds. I screamed as loud as I could for help. I apologized for the whole thing. And I begged God for someone to come along and save me.
Maddie then explains that after an eternity, she felt herself leave her body.
And then I was at the surface, gasping for air. And I was finally back there. Back at our old sleepaway camp. That whole reality where I was Maddie Wilson drifted away. And I was me. I was finally me again. And it was the season 6 premiere.
Maddie, or Tara, says she was unable to find where Isabel was buried, and her signal was absent from the psychic plane. Tara left the hearts in Mr. Melancholy's fridge, took a drink of his Luna juice, then fell back asleep, sending herself to the Midnight Realm once again.
I knew I needed to come back and save you. So that we can get to season 6.
Maddie.
That's not my name. Remember? On the bleachers? You know what he put inside you.
This reference to the bleachers scene calls back to the line where Owen said in response to whether he liked boys or girls, "When I think about that stuff, it feels like someone took a shovel and dug out all of my insides, and I know there's nothing in there." Owen still rejects Tara's reality.
This isn't the Midnight Realm, Maddie. It's just the suburbs.
Despite his insistence that this isn't real, Owen follows Maddie to the football field where he says,
"It's just like the dream lords. It's not real. I don't think about it."
Tara calls Owen Isabel before Owen pushes her down and runs away. Owen says he never saw Tara, who he still calls Maddie, again after that day, and he believes he made the right choice.
But some nights, when I was working late at the movie theater, I found myself wondering, what if she was right? That's just fantasy. Kid stuff.
We then see, before Tara departed, she left a message for Isabel on the street. There is still time. Like Owen says,
time moves fast these days.
And he's aging quickly, and his father has long passed away.
Years pass like seconds. I just try not to think too hard about it.
The movie theater is even closed now, but his manager brought him over to the fun center, so it ain't all that bad.
I even got a family of my own. I love them more than anything.
And back in that shot at the campfire, Owen puts out the flames and narrates, once again, how he recently restarted the Pink Opaque. Only now,
it was nothing like I remembered it.
Hey, Mr. Ice Cream Man!
Again much older, Owen works a shift at the fun center where we see some Pink Opacified arcade games. During a happy birthday song, Owen screams for help.
I'm dying right now!
while everyone around him freezes. Owen apologizes to everyone before locking himself in the bathroom, where he takes a box cutter to his chest and cuts himself open. Inside Owen glows the distorted static of a television. Owen experiences a series of emotions before literally putting himself back together and returning outside, apologizing profusely.
Sorry about that before. Sorry.
Again, I hope you're here after already seeing this film for yourself at least once, so I'm going to talk about some of the director's perspectives on the film and its ending, but again, don't let your own interpretation or experience with the film be tarnished, because no matter the intention of the artist, I think art is often supposed to evoke the experiences of the reader, and especially I Saw the TV Glow is a film that is impossible not to project your own experiences onto it by design. That said, Schönbrunn has stated they wrote the film when they were 35 and just beginning hormone replacement therapy, having recently come out as trans. But the idea for the film began with a vague concept of a cliffhanger from a show you enjoyed as a kid having effects on your adult life. In an interview with Polygon, they stated, "For me on this film, there was this idea of being haunted by an unresolved cliffhanger from a child's show, and the idea specifically of the characters on the TV show being in a certain kind of danger. That feeling of not having resolution, and that making it hard to exist in the real world to the point where you're almost taking on the pain of those characters." And from there, I really wanted to investigate why that particular mental metaphor and this sort of unreality and merging of fiction and reality that's inherent to it was so close to me. I knew fairly early on what I was talking about was a trans experience and dysphoria. And as I was beginning to work through dysphoria and beginning my actual transition, I understood this as a movie about recognizing something that's wrong, and about the process that goes into that recognition. In the film, both Owen and Maddie are recognizing something is wrong through viewing their favorite TV show, The Pink Opaque. Maddie realizes first that her entire life is a lie, and she is indeed Tara, the main character of The Pink Opaque, and Owen is Isabel. Through glimmers of flashbacks of Owen wearing Isabel's magic dress, we see that perhaps Owen first realized this around the time of their sleepovers, but he suppressed it, and when Maddie proposed they run away, he suppressed it further. But just like Maddie tells Owen at the bar, she literally buried herself alive in this reality and woke up as Tara in the reality of The Pink Opaque. Owen's now older, and he's still never left his home, but the thought of letting go of his past life to pursue what he writes off as a crazy, childish fantasy, it's too great of a risk for him. So suppress it he does, and he gets older, remaining stagnant in location, but his asthma worsens, as does his feelings of anxiety and dread. At the birthday party, where Owen screamed, begged for help, apologized for the whole thing, and begged for someone to come save him, before literally cutting himself open in the bathroom to reveal his insides made of TV static, Owen has finally realized Maddie was right, and he is really Isabel, who is trapped buried in her original reality, choking on dirt. And of course, as we learned from the season 5 finale of The Pink Opaque, the reason they were put into the Midnight Realm was because they were caught by Mr. Melancholy. Of course, thinking outside of the narrative, this is intended as a big metaphor for experiencing gender dysphoria amid suppressing your own true gender identity until that egg crack moment, which Schönbrunn describes as the moment when this thing that maybe you've subconsciously always known to be true, which is that you're trans, finally becomes unavoidable. And unavoidable in a way where you can't go back into the closet and re-repress it. In creating a film that at its core is about that egg crack moment, Schönbrunn felt it was critical to portray it with honesty, and for them, that clearly came with all sorts of existential dread, terror, and anxiety. Jane Schönbrunn said some great things in their Polygon interview about how Owen, a very passive character who does not have that egg crack moment until the very final scene of the movie, was very intentionally written with Schönbrunn's honest experiences in mind, and not the often glamorized or at the very least oversimplified depictions of dysphoria and transness in film and television. And of course, with that came some good old-fashioned big wig pushback. They state it perfectly in their own words, so forgive me if this quote is very long, but they said, "Owen is the least interesting character in that he doesn't so much grow as he decays." And in this sense, he could be called by like a hack studio executive a passive narrator. At the same time, I think that kind of passivity feels inherently tied to an experience that I, and I think many other trans folks, can relate to on a deeply visceral level. It indicates exactly how our ideas about what proper narrative or progress is not only woefully limited in the experiences it's showing, but also, like maybe by definition, masculine and cis. It's reflective of an idea of agency and individual agency that doesn't resonate with other experiences like my own. And so I am trying to rewrite or call into question or challenge or simply just like exist within alternative ideas of narrative structure to express something that feels emotionally truthful to my experience in the world. I had a meeting with a really smart producer for this film, and he was like, "Listen, Owen is too passive. You need to rewrite this thing. Owen needs to be like, he got out of his hometown and he's coming back to visit, and all of these things are haunting him. This character is just a mess, and nobody wants to watch a mess." In fact, this producer told me, "Your audience is going to be convinced that Owen murdered Maddie when Maddie disappears because you are playing against a century of Hollywood filmmaking about the reclusive, passive man who is secretly a psychopath, right? Like the lineage of Norman Bates or Peeping Tom, the stuck inside himself freak, passive or strange recluse, a character we should be viewing with suspicion." And I was so fascinated by this. It was really interesting from a trans perspective because, of course, Norman Bates was trans. And so I do think part of if it feels wrong to you to be watching a character who is so stuck inside himself in the way Owen is, and for you to sit with that and question it as narratively incorrect, like what presuppositions are you bringing to the table with that? On that century of Hollywood filmmaking that pushed transphobic and homophobic tropes, particularly in the horror genre, which Schoenbrunn says in another interview while citing Psycho and Silence of the Lambs as examples, quote, "created and codified an idea of transness as monstrous," which is a concept they've stated their next feature, Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, will at least partly explore. Not only did some producers misunderstand Owen's character, they also pushed for Schoenbrunn to end the film with the shot of Owen looking in the mirror at the TV glowing from within. But Schoenbrunn thought that would align with a false narrative that everything is fine and joyful the second that a trans person has their egg crack, when the reality is anything but that. In an interview with Filmmaker magazine, Schoenbrunn elaborated on the final shot of the film with Owen apologizing to his coworkers and customers. I think that, at least to me, one of the points of the ending is showing the absurdism of this moment. It's like this dude literally just cut himself open and saw that his insides were filled with TV static that the man in the moon put inside him to trick him into a life in a hell dimension. And once he realizes that fact, his first instinct is just to go back out into his day job and start apologizing to people for acting a little weird. It's completely absurd, but hopefully gets something across about what Maddie says at the beginning of the movie. Don't apologize. So many trans people I know have this instinct to apologize for our existence, right? I hope it'll be comforting to trans people because the butterfly narrative leaves out the reality of the experience, which is that you've just accumulated a life of trauma and now the job becomes get over it. I want to make movies about what happens next in transition once you see yourself or once you see the TV glow or whatever. But this particular movie was written to capture that overwhelming dread and terror of first figuring out yourself. It would have been way too much to track the character beyond just the seeing of himself, which is a huge moment, half a life in the making. Written sometime around 2021, Jane Schoenbrunn's TV Glow screenplay soon caught the attention of megastar and co-founder of Fruit Tree Productions, Emma Stone, alongside her husband David McHarry. With that assistance, the screenplay was reportedly shopped around to 6 different studios, with A24 eventually being announced as co-producers alongside Fruit Tree, with Schoenbrunn directing the feature as well. By the time filming commenced in the summer of 2022, the TV Glow cast would be assembled with the likes of Justice Smith, Jack Haven, Danielle Deadweiler, Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit, among the film's several other cameos from the music world or alumni of the Monster of the Week television genre. Filming wrapped on August 17th, 2022, in the suburbs of New Jersey, and around 2 years later, on January 18th, 2024, I Saw the TV Glow premiered in the midnight time slot at the Sundance Film Festival, which was the same time slot that The Blair Witch Project premiered in all the way back in 1999. The film was then given a very limited theatrical release in May of 2024 and never expanded to more than just under 500 theaters, grossing $5 million during its run, being pushed to video on demand just a month later. Despite its heavy queer themes and indifference to the Hollywood narrative structure, the film was largely acclaimed by critics, and it was nominated for 3 Gotham Awards, 5 Independent Spirit Awards, and 9 Dorian Awards, where it also won LGBTQ Screenplay of the Year and LGBTQ Film of the Year. By September of that year, the film was made available on HBO Max, where it has lived ever since. The film is a really special one to me, and that sentiment is shared with a ton of other trans and queer people out there, and I can't stress enough how enthralled I've been with all of Schönbrun's work to date, so I'm very excited for their next project. And as I mentioned earlier, that next project is Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, which recently wrapped production back in June and is expected to be released sometime next year. But in regards to a potential continuation of the TV Glow universe, Schönbrun stated in 2024 that they'd be open to approaching the story of I Saw the TV Glow from another angle. They later tweeted that they had a more concrete idea for a quote-unquote sequel. I Saw the TV Glow was Schönbrun's second fictional feature-length film after 2021's We're All Going to the World's Fair, and Schönbrun has said that those two films can be paired together as the beginnings of a trilogy of films centered around the framing device of screens. The third entry in that screen trilogy won't be Camp Miasma though, nor does it seem it will be this abstract concept of a TV Glow sequel. Instead, Schönbrun plans on releasing a novel next year to cap off their screen trilogy. Not much else is known about the novel, but I certainly will be signing up for a pre-order whenever that day comes. Now, because I Saw the TV Glow is an A24 production, of course they released some really cool merchandise for the film that makes my wallet ache. My favorite being a VHS copy of I Saw the TV Glow, which when it was first released also came with limited edition trading cards, but yes, it's an actual playable VHS with the movie on it, and I need it. They also have vinyl pressings of the film's soundtrack, as well as its score by Alex G, and God, I need those too. They've also got the Blu-ray, a $50 candle for some reason, some clothes and pins and what have you.
Insufficient funds, you ain't got no money. Woo.
I Saw the TV Glow is my favorite film of the 2020s, and it's really unlike any film I've ever seen in the way that it manages to touch on so many chord-striking moments from the queer experience, which is anything but universal. But as I've said before, it's impossible to not project your own experiences onto this film, and I think that is in large part thanks to Schönbrun's insistence on portraying their own gender dysphoria with truth and honesty through the character of Owen. The resulting film is an unpredictable emotional roller coaster that requires audiences to question the Hollywood narratives that we've grown all too familiar with, just like Isabel and Tara have to question their own reality, which is truly holding them captive.